Special good morning. Good morning once again to the listeners. Good morning to the viewers. Welcome to today's edition of To The Point. It's Friday, the 21st, the day of August 2026. Listeners, viewers via social media platforms, let me say good morning to you once again and welcome. I'm your host, Shiti. Let me say good morning to my guest this morning. We have, of course, Mr. Arley Gill back with us this morning once again. Sir, good morning.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Political Leader of the DPM, of course. And with us this morning, Mr. Peter David, Political Leader of the DPM. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome. Good morning and welcome. Nice to have you back on To The Point. How's everybody doing for starts?
Pleasure to be here as usual. It's always a pleasure talking with you, discussing with you and with your listeners.
Thank you very much for having me, and pleasant good morning to the listeners, viewers, and the general listening public.
All right. I want to get the ball rolling up this morning. You know, one of the most concerning conversations you hear from time to time with citizens, cost of living. It's concerning. We're hearing of the economic relief that the government is offering in terms of that 2-day VAT free and so forth. I know I'm hearing from conversations from you via social media and other mediums, it's not something that you are disagreeing with the DPM, not in full disagreement with the government doing that. And you know, the assistance that's been offered, sir, we understand it's going to reach more than 38,000 households as predicted. From a DPM point of view, these temporary measures, if you had to say, gentlemen, I would want to throw this out to Mr. Peter David for starts. What's your three immediate, I would say, kitchen table measures, if I could put it in that way, that would give families, that lasting help? We're talking from the food, the electricity bill that we hear everyone complains about from time to time, the transportation costs, schools are going to be reopening, folks will be moving to and fro, the medical bills and so forth. Talk to me about that three immediate measures.
Well, you hit it on the head when you say they're temporary measures.
Yes.
And that is the problem. They're temporary, a few months, people are going to get some relief, and we are not slamming the government for giving these measures, because of course what the government is indicating is that they recognize there's a problem of affordability.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to the supermarket every week. I mean, I tell people the story. I went a couple of weeks ago and there was a line in front of the freezer where they were selling meats and so on, and people are looking at the different items to see which are the cheapest items. The problem is cheapest now means the least expensive, and so it is tough. It is tough for people. It is tough on households. So of course, the government has to at least recognize the problem. The question is, has the government, first of all, did not see this coming? It's not an issue that has just come up on the government. And we have to have a production of local foods. One of the issues is, can we feed our people? How can we feed our people? And what needs to be done? We are an agricultural society. We import nearly everything that we eat. It is getting worse every year. Marketing board was set up as a mechanism to help our farmers. When the government came in, they I could say abolished marketing board, because while they say they were restructuring marketing board, we are yet to see anything come out of that. So our farmers are out there with seem to be the only thing, as my friend the senator said last night, the only thing we've done in agriculture is have some Irish potatoes come into the parliament. Of course, with Irish potatoes, I've not heard anything more about that. I said we should have sweet potatoes. Rather, I realize that's a separate one. So the issue of food production, the issue of looking at what we eat, we need to do an inventory of what we eat, what do people want, how can we provide as much as we can in Grenada for people to eat. Do we need to go on a buy local campaign, a produce local campaign? Do we need to establish factories where we can do something? We need to have a discussion about how we can feed ourselves more. I am not idealistic. We cannot replace every item with local items, but certainly we can do more more to produce locally and focus on agriculture. I have not seen a focus on agriculture and agricultural production. Secondly, the issue that we've raised with electricity bills. The electricity bill is crazy. I mean, I don't need to tell people because they open their bill every month and they see the way the bill is increasing every month. And we have said that we need to take advantage of the one thing that nobody can stop us having, which is our sun. We need to do more solar energy for homes. We have said that we will embark on, and Senator here can expand on it if he wishes, to provide cheaper electricity in our country. We need to deal with that, not simply as an item that it makes it appear you're doing something. It is something that will affect people's lives every day. So these are some of the things we need to do, in addition to the fact that we need to ensure that things like medicines and so on are more affordable. Healthcare, a critical thing in everybody's lives. Every household, or I should say maybe 90% of our households, has somebody in there who's taking medication. Medication is expensive. Accessible healthcare needs to be made more affordable. We hear a lot about Polaris. Yeah. I have said, and we have said, I have no difficulty with a new hospital. But what we need, as we go to the countryside every night. Last night we were up in St. John's, and the issue is that how do people get medication cheaper? I have people in the town of St. George. I help people every week with that issue. People come to me and they say, listen, I need help to buy medication. I say, are you taking your medication? They say, Mr. David, listen, I'm supposed to take 2 pressure tablets every day, but I can't take both of them. So I take one this day, and the next one I take the next day. In other words, they have to decide, am I going to take my medication or am I going to buy food? It is a choice that nobody should have to make. So we need to find a way to get medication cheaper. The government needs to deal with the procurement issue, something that Senator Gill refers to. We need to find ways to make it more affordable. People are bawling. Households, and wages are remaining the same. So when you look at it, there are households who have to choose between, should I pay the light bill this month? Should I pay the phone bill this month? Should I buy food? How much food? Should I cut back on the food? Kids are going back to school next week. Parents, I have been receiving calls every day on the issue of how do we afford to buy the things for our kids when food prices are so high. So, and lastly, I'll say this. We need to come together to discuss these issues. There needs to be more consultation with the opposition. The opposition of this country, meaning the persons who are not in government, are half of the population. We need to have discussions so that we can assist the government in coming up with solutions to these problems. We cannot continue along the path where government is doing something, the people who we represent come to us with issues, and we have no mechanism through which we can have these discussions.
Do you believe it's been done in the cost of living assistance program as it's called? Do you think it's done in a timely manner, or this should have been done at a time when folks were more needing that assistance than the gap that has been fit into now, that 2 days within the next 3 months?
Let me take this question and put it this way. The government of Grenada is not responsible for the international economic environment.
Understandable, so.
Let us establish that. Because sometimes when we speak as opposition members or persons who are not in government, people think that all we do is bashing. We are not here to bash the government on that issue. We are aware of the war between Russia and Ukraine, which has significantly affected the production of serious production items, of basic items, and also the Iran-US conflict and so on, and the rising energy prices and so on. So that there is an international economic environment which adversely affects the prices of food and cost of living. So that is established. However, what is it that can we do locally to address this issue in as much as we can in our own capacity? And this is where the issue of food security comes in. And this is where agriculture and the principle of grow what you eat what you grow, and so on comes in significantly. Are we producing enough food? Are we producing enough meats, chicken, fish, and so on and so forth? Are we able to produce enough food with the relevant nutrition for the population, from childhood to elderly population and so on? And that's a significant issue. Governments across the world, and indeed across the region, they were implementing these measures long before the government of Grenada. Earlier this year, late last year, you have Barbados, Dominica, St. Lucia, and so on, addressing the issue of food prices. So that is nothing new. In fact, you speak about timeliness. Grenada, this policy or food program or relief program that the government has announced and put in place should have been done a long time ago. They were slow off the mark. In fact, I go even further to say that as election getting closer, that is one of the motivating factors for them putting that into place. So that you see all of the NDC foot soldiers on the ground and people are campaigning and so on. I'm saying the issue of cost of living ought not to be merely a campaign issue. It goes beyond that. Cost of living is a day-to-day issue. It speaks to the very survival of our population. The ability of parents to send children back to school in September. The ability of parents to provide 3 square meals on a day-to-day basis. That goes beyond looking for votes. In our respectful view, and the government was very slow to the march, extremely slow to the march. I mean, no one have to if you size up the international economic environment, you know that it's coming to you, and that is also too, when and it goes further when the government enters into contractual arrangement where we do not know the cost and so on, it puts more pressure on the citizenry with regards to what is going to happen 5-10 years down the road. We appreciate, and the European Union have issued a communique with regards to the CBI programs.
Yes.
And they are saying to us, listen, you all need to put an end to that in the next 2 years or thereabouts. They have continued to squeeze and to put pressure on that sector, which has provided us with additional revenue as a government. In other words, I saw the premier of Navy saying in a program recently that as far as he's concerned, the CBI days are numbered. It is over. In other words, what alternative economic programs is the government is going to put in place now to cushion the effect or the impact if and when the CBI program falls? Those are the critical issues that the government needs to be addressing, and the issue of cost of living continues. We don't have to read and spell for persons who are listening out to the citizenry. Every day, people, if you don't go to the supermarkets, you go to the village shops. You know the price of turkey. You know the price of bakanek and so on. I go to the market every Saturday, right? They weigh the Hannah fig for you. They weigh they Kong the plantains for you and so on. You're getting 5 lime for $5, right? You're getting 5 okra for $5. Almost $1 okra now.
Yeah.
In other words, not just in the supermarket, but in the marketplace and so on. And Mr. David spoke about the problem with the Marketing and National Importing Board. So really and truly, we are the government of the day has shown absolutely no serious leadership with regards to addressing the issue of cost of living. No serious leadership in terms of addressing the agricultural sector and the issue of food security, the fishery sector, and so on and so forth. And we continue to simply drift and go with the tide with regards to cost of living rather than seriously addressing the issue. And that 3 months, that 3 months and temporary measure with regards to cost of living is nothing more than a campaign ploy by the government of the day rather than any genuine and sincere regards to the issue of cost of living in this country.
I want to hear a DPM perspective of this. How does the DPM plan to incentivize, local agriculture, sir, and the fisheries to reduce that dependency on the expensive, imports and make fresh food more affordable for Grenadians?
I spoke at length. I'll take the issue of fisheries first, because that has been a passion of mine, really, coming from a fishing community, a village of Marigot on the west coast of this island. And I've said here on your program before, and I've said last night again, the issue of manufacturing sector in the fisheries industry. How are we to add value to the fish? And I made the point that a couple months ago, when the US banned our fish exports from Grenada to the US market, we had no plan B. Yeah, we had no plan. The fish was remained in the hands of the fishermen. They had no market to sell. In fact, men pull up their boat and so on. And it made sense to the fishermen. It didn't make sense expending significant money to go to the fisher when they come, they didn't have a market. And we had no plan B. So the issue of fish processing is an issue that the DPM have said loudly and publicly as the only political party that has championed the issue of fish processing over the last year or so has been the DPM. No other political party have done so. In fact, I had to remind the people of Granroy last night that after I spoke to the issue of fish processing on your program, then the NDC had a meeting in St. John's and they spoke to it. But they wouldn't know where to start. But fish processing is extremely important. And we're talking about not just tuna and the more marketable fish and so on. We're talking about from sprat and anchovy and jacks and so on and so forth. We believe the technology is there. We have the production and so on. We can seriously look at the issue of fish processing. And that can, and also too, when we speak about providing healthy and nutritious food. The Caribbean have the highest percentage of chronic illnesses in the world, diabetes and hypertension. And I made the point that the codfish, which we purchase in the shop and say we go and buy saltfish, is actually codfish from North America. Our local codfish is far healthier and so on and so forth. So that we also have to change the thinking and the education of our people, which is extremely important. Now, all of this cannot be we cannot have any serious transformation without transforming the way we think and the way we do things. If we continue to believe that what is imported is best, then crap will smoke with pipe. We'll continue, regardless of what any government will continue. The person will go to the supermarket shelves and continue to purchase what is imported if our mindset doesn't change. So it begins with our mind, and that is why I said before that to me the most telling lesson of the Minister of Agriculture going in the Parliament with Irish potatoes is not what was said or was not said. The subliminal message which was sent is that, hey, these Irish potatoes, or what they call it, whitey potatoes and so on, which is not traditionally grown in Grenada, is better than what we produce. That was a subliminal message. It wasn't so much that what was said and was not said. You ever see sweet potatoes being brought in the Parliament? And fig and yam and dashing? And jacks? No, foreign stuff, and that is what we say to our people. So I could not for the life of me understand how on earth a Minister of Agriculture who is from the bread basket of the country from St. Andrews go in Parliament with some Irish potatoes, and that's the mindset. So that fish processing and so on is extremely important, and we need to ensure that we can get fish at an affordable price into households. The price of fish and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. With regards to the agricultural sector, when we were, both myself and my distinguished colleague here, who were once expelled from the NDC, but we started, how do we now use their government farms? How do we now use government farms to increase production of agriculture and the starting off of cooperatives and so on and so forth? How do you now modernize agriculture in Grenada by introducing machinery and so on? There's an issue of labor as well, which is to be seriously addressed in the agricultural sector. If you have persons, farm workers doing 4 hours work per day for $80 a day, $100 a day, and they have construction men doing 8 hours for the same kind of salary, then you know what we are talking about. So the issue of labor need to be addressed on the farms. From time to time, the Ministry of Agriculture and so on will have farm cleaning programs and so on, but those are not sustainable. The farmers need reliable, affordable labor day in, day out to keep production at a certain level. So the issue of, when we speak of agriculture, we're not just talking about production. The issue of labor on the farms needs to be seriously addressed. How can they? No, Minister David does not blow a trumpet, so I blew one for him. When he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, he was able to secure affordable and free fertilizers from the Kingdom of Morocco, right? Because the issue of securing fertilizers to assist our farmers and so on in a real sense and make it affordable to them and so on, so that the track record is there, right? How do we ensure that farmers can get farm implements, modernized farm implements and so on at an affordable price? I know that, and I'm a registered farmer, by the way.
Yeah. I'll speak to that.
I'm a registered farmer, by the way. So I know that the Ministry of Agriculture over time they do have this farm assistance programs. I mean, they come to my farm, they spray the soursop and prune the trees. They lend out equipment and so on, which is good. Yeah. But we need to go further. But I also believe that in transforming agriculture, what is at the heart of it is education.
Yes.
Education in terms of new farming methods and so on, but also to say to our young people, those are investing in agriculture is as good as investing in technology, investing in sales of other items and so on and so forth. People need to be proud to be farmers and so on. So it's a change of mindset as well. It's not just doing things for agriculture and so on. And of course, the citizenry, GT people like you who do farming, when you go to the supermarket, you have to purchase local products.
Yes.
I don't know if you're taking a break.
Go ahead. I'll let you go through.
I think I call him Senator still, with respect. He was Senator. I think Senator Gill is absolutely correct on the issue of fishing and also on farming. But I just want to add something. When I was Minister for Agriculture, we had two programs that really should have been enhanced and developed. One is land banks, yes, and secondly, youth in agriculture. The average age of a farmer now is in the 60s, meaning young people are not going into agriculture. The point my dear brother was making, that young people, we need to do things to make agriculture more attractive for young people, and we're not doing that. The land bank project, because land is an issue, availability of land. Government only has a limited amount of land available. My brother speaks to the government farms. I agree. Granbra and the Monk Rule and other farms need to be put under more production. But more importantly, and we did much of that during my time as Minister for Agriculture. The record is there. I can speak to that. But more importantly, there is a lot of private lands that is not under cultivation. And what the program sought to do, the land bank program, is to ask private landowners to put their land into a bank. The government will enter into a contract with them to lease the lands for a particular period, and then we get persons to come into that land or young people to do farming. And we also had a youth and agriculture program, which envisaged getting more young people in agriculture. But to do that, technology is important. Senator is absolutely correct. Young people are not going to come in seeing their parents going up in the mountain with cutlass and boots, bucking hard, and then they look in other places and see people making money with other things. They go to the other things. So we need to make agriculture more attractive, and that is where now the marketing board comes in, because the Marketing and National Importing Board was set up in order to assist farmers in several areas, two of which is importing the inputs at a cheap rate, because Senator spoke about the cost of fertilizer. Now, with the Straits of Hormuz and Ukraine, in fact, Ukraine, more importantly, agriculture fertilizer prices skyrocketed, making it very prohibitive for farmers. But these discussions must be held. We get a sense that the government has not been looking toward agriculture, as he said, to make the biggest achievement, producing a couple of Irish potatoes, is not what we want. What we want is to first of all determine what foods we need to produce to feed our people. What are we importing? What can we produce in here that we are importing? How much chicken can we produce in Grenada to do some of the alternatives? Or is cows a better alternative? Should we focus on pigs or goats? We need to have these discussions and then implement the means to do it. So the land availability, the capital availability, which brings me to the final point I want to make on agriculture. It is easier for me to walk into any bank or any financial institution and buy a bus than it is for us to get a loan to do any farming. Now the banks will say, well, the loans with farming is too risky. Then the government should step in and set up a mechanism to develop these projects. I said the last time I was here that we should set up an entity which develops these projects and then invite young people to take these projects and support them all the way to the success of the projects. Don't just say give a man so you can go on a political platform and say I gave a man a few dollars to do a farm. No, you have to help the young people to develop their businesses. We do not have a culture of businesses. We come from slavery. It's a process. We need to ensure that we get into the minds of our young people how to do business. And we as government must be part of doing that. So yes, agriculture must be seen more, I think, in total as a business.
We drew for that break. Let's take it. We come back. We continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. Don't touch your dial.
Life doesn't stand still. It moves. It grows. It asks you to believe in what's next. Your first car. Owning your home. The business you build. The future you choose to invest in. Life moves in steps. When you're ready to take the next one, we're here to help you move forward with banking solutions designed for life. From vehicle financing and mortgages to education savings, credit solutions, and support for your growing business. Republic Bank, ready for life, every step.
How far can a government go when it disagrees with a judge's decision? And where does legitimate criticism end and interference with the judiciary begin? Recent comments by Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has sparked a major regional debate over judicial independence, sentencing, and the separation of powers. Could similar concerns arise here in Grenada? Join Colin Dow this Monday at 8:30 p.m. on Beyond the Headlines with attorneys Lady and Nandy Trotman Joseph and Ruggles Ferguson as we examine government, judges, and the rule of law. It's Beyond the Headlines, Monday, 8:30 p.m. only on GBN.
Affordable quality products delivered to you via Superb Service. We are Superb Distributors, wholesalers and authorized agents for trusted products you know and love, like Rika Juices, Pure Heaven products, Bibbin diapers, New Bright laundry detergent, Allegra pasta, and more.
Contact Superb Distributors at 435-2948 for superb quality and service.
The Caribbean's highly anticipated international drags returns to the Spice Isle of Grenada. The Grenada Motor Club proudly presents the King Ocean International Drags, September 26th and 27th at the Pearls International Speedway. Get ready for what is anticipated to be one of the largest international drag racing events the Caribbean has ever seen. Witness some of the fastest and most powerful drag racing machines in the Caribbean, along with international participation from across the region, North America and South America. 2 days of speed, power, adrenaline, and non-stop action. And it doesn't stop at drag racing. Expect some special drift entertainment, appearances from some of the Caribbean's top influencers, and so much more. Mark the dates, September 26th and 27th. The King Ocean International Drags. The Caribbean is coming to the Spice Isle. You don't want to miss this one.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. Once again, welcome back to my guests. Of course, you are not looking to David with us this morning. And should I still tap that honorable to the name?
Yeah. Not necessary. Everybody know the drill.
Of course, he's the leader of the DPM and the political leader, Sally Gill, with us also. Gentlemen, welcome back. I want to tap into a bit of a concern. I want to talk a bit about the economy and the opportunities that's available. And I want to reference it a lot on young people in this segment. Many young Grenadians say that they need to migrate to find, that secured future. We hear that conversation all the time. I speak to young people who say, well, I feel like I just leave Grenada. We hear the conversation with young people say, well, Grenada is like for the elderly. There's nothing for the young people. What the DPM government do in its first 2 years? If the opportunity is put out there and the DPM gets to be the government of Grenada, in terms of in 2 years to create jobs, that viable business opportunity, especially for young people, not just in the short-term programs that we hear a lot of conversation, gonna do this for 3 months and do this for 4 months or do this for the fact, but that durable career enterprise opportunity for young people. I want to talk to me about that, sir.
Well, it starts with training. I think our whole education system needs to be revisited on that issue. Again, we spoke about Morocco earlier. I remember when I visited Morocco sometime in, I'm not sure, sometime 2008, 2009, 10, and subsequently visited again when I was Foreign Minister again under the NNP. We had discussions about vocational training.
Yes.
We had this because in Morocco there is an excellent network of vocational training up to the point of building spare parts for planes, repairing planes. They've done very well in that regard. We need in Grenada to determine what our labor force needs to be like. When these hotels are built, for example, I was very much involved in many of the hotels that were built in Six Senses, St. Patrick's projects, many of the hotels as Minister for Foreign Affairs and as Minister for Tourism. And a lot of the labor, the majority of the labor for these construction of these hotels, and you see today too, are imported from various countries. Even the road projects I see taking place, I see persons coming from outside. No, I'm not suggesting that we would not have to import some labor, but the fact is many Grenadian young people are sitting by and watching that the money that is being spent on the construction of these projects is going out of the country right after the projects are completed. So we need to start there. We need to train our young people for the work that is available. It is no longer sufficient to teach them maths and English and biology and chemistry and those subjects. We need to make young people understand that technology is important, carpentry is important, plumbing is important. I remember once looking for 2 plumbers in the town of St. George for somebody who asked me for plumbers. I couldn't find 2 qualified plumbers. And these days the employers are asking for your
some kind of certification
in that regard. So it needs to start there. It needs to start with training our people and looking seriously at the development of the vocational institutions that we have. It is absolutely not suitable for what the demands are. In other words, we must match the demands for labor with the availability of the qualified labor force in that regard. Secondly, apart from looking for jobs, we need to train young people to create jobs. We need to establish businesses. We need to start very early in our schools to teach our young people about business. How do they do businesses? I see people coming from India and countries like that because they grew up in a business environment in places like Trinidad and Tobago. They grew up in businesses.
Yeah. And so you wonder how they settle in so quickly.
Exactly, because they have that culture. Yeah. We need to develop that culture. So what do we need to do? Introduce business more practical business subjects in our schools. But additionally, and I've said this before, we must make sure at GIDC they can do things like develop projects. So you develop a project, 10 projects in agriculture, one in sheep production, one in goat production, one in beef production. You develop the project, meaning you develop the scheme for the project, and you invite young people to come in and choose which ones they would want to do. And they would say, listen, I love to do this technology subject, AI. And they look at this project, they say that is a project for me. And we match the person with the project. But not only that, we develop an arrangement with the banks, the GDB, the commercial banks, the other financial institutions to finance the project. And then we establish persons who will work with these young people through the projects to the end, and when they become successful, then you leave them and you do it with other people. In other words, we must not just say to young people, you guys must do business. We must work with them. And that way you develop that culture of business. You develop that idea within families. And within the families now, these businesses take off. So that one father and mother pass it on to the kids go on to other businesses. I tell people, my mother and father, they grew up poor. When they got married, they decided to build a house. So they built a house and they worked hard to pay for the house. My father worked at Huggins for 24 years. There came a time when he felt he was not being promoted, so he left. He started a rent-a-car, and then he worked with that. He bought another house, bought some land, and the generational wealth started going. And he vowed that he would have all his kids go to university, because he and my mother never had the opportunity. In fact, I became a lawyer because my mother insisted that she wanted to be a lawyer, couldn't afford it, so she basically insisted I go to law school, and that is why I ended up in law school. The point I'm making is we must develop that within families, and we must do it knowing that every single child has potential. I think one of our problems too, my brother, is that we do not let our kids know that they have the talent to do it. So we as a society, and again, it calls for us bringing our communities together. It calls for us working with all the kids. It calls for us doing things not as politicians, giving away this, giving away that, just to get a vote, but to help lift people out of poverty. And I've been in politics for more than 50 years. Senator, he has been there for years. We've seen the best and we've seen the worst, and we are prepared to work on that as projects that will help enhance the villages and enhance our community.
Now tell me this, you want to highlight anything on that?
Well, I think well, not just really, but on the issue of vocational training, one just have to listen to the governor of Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Mr. Timothy Antoine, who over and over again speaks to the lack of technical training through the region, through the sub-region, so that Grenada falls into that. And I think Peter highlighted that succinctly, but also on the issue of youth. The Ministry of Youth need to be refocused and revamped, really. The Imani program has fulfilled what it was set out maybe to achieve, and we need to have a new look as to how we can engage our young people going forward. I think that is extremely important. And we envisage that the Youth Ministry is really and truly a ministry or department of government that engages young people, but supervises the functioning engagement of young people throughout different spheres. So when we look of the Ministry of Youth, we think about youth in agriculture, youth in sport, youth in culture, youth in tourism, and so on and so forth. You see, so that is not a simple issue of simply getting young people and employing them, and the government pay them 800 or whatever the salary is every month and so on. We must try to align young people with their interests, with their skill set, and so on and so forth, across a wide spectrum of different government ministries and departments. So it's not just the Ministry of Youth, and we have Youth Parliament, and we have youth. Those things are good, and we'll continue those things. But I think there needs to be a more strategic approach towards youth development in the country.
Tell me, with inflation rising, does it DPM support a comprehensive review of the upward adjustment of the national minimum, wage across all sectors?
In our time, when we were in NEC, we significantly increased the minimum wage, and that is something that needs to be consistently looked at.
Yeah.
Now, you have to understand where we come from. From 1838, at the end of the apprenticeship period, and which finalized the abolition of slavery, the economic conditions of persons in the Caribbean remained the same for about 100 years, up to 1938, right up to the so-called Moyne Commission, right? When persons speak of Sky Red and so on in 1951, and people speaks about Sir Eric Matthew Gary's contribution in the industrial, in his trade unionism, and increasing enhancing the well-being of farm labor and workers, and getting black people to work in banks and so on and so forth throughout the 1950s. We're talking about an economic condition which remained for over 100 years since slavery. So it's not far removed. So that fast forward to 2026. We got independence in 1974. Grenada is 52 years old and so on. But the issue of the minimum wage, the issue must be matched in a significant way with the economic development of the country, right? You cannot, in a real sense, force employers to say, pay $15, pay $16 an hour and so on and so forth, and that they cannot sustain themselves. So while we speak of increasing the minimum wage and so, we also have to be mindful that at the next end of the spectrum, we do not cripple businesses. So that as a responsible government, responsible political party, we're not going to come here on GT program onto the point and make all sorts of outlandish pronouncements with regards to removing for elections and to get vote and so on about moving the minimum wage to a certain amount. And when we get into government, the reality is different.
It's not feasible.
It's not feasible. So we have to be sensible about these things. It's just like saying that when we get into government, we're going to make all contracted government workers, put them on the payroll, and we understand that throughout all these years, that is what, if you understand the economic history of this country, when the NDC under George Brizan and so on went on a structural adjustment program and had to lay off a significant amount of workers, if you look at the amount of public servants on our payroll and you do a comparative analysis to that of other OECS countries and so on, you will see that our public wage bill is sky high compared to other countries and so on, like St. Lucia and so on and so forth. So that one needs to be realistic on these issues. We need to do the proper study and the proper analysis and so on. You can't just come and say, and the consultation, just come and say, all temporary workers, and no, because at the end of the day, Grenada is not an island unto itself. Our economy and our productive output and so on, it impacts on our economy. So that those things, GT, while one may develop economic policies and so on and so forth, I believe that it is unholy. I believe that in 2026, politicians and so on must be responsible with regards to what you put out there and promising the citizenry. And when you go into government, you realize that half of the things you talk about, you cannot do it. And backing, and then people say, well, look at them, they're breaking the promises and so on. We must not just simply throw bait to catch vote, and knowing that the bait we throw is insincere and disingenuous. I don't want to be that part of that. I don't want to be in that sort of politics. I want to be able to say to you, listen, we think this is a good idea. We think this is a good program that we can embark upon. But at this particular time, we don't have all the information before us, and we cannot give such a commitment.
On that issue, I want to make a point which talks about how we structure it, because these issues are just making a general proposition, not in relation to minimum wage and so on. That we need to come together as communities to discuss some of these issues, because these promises and when the promises are unfulfilled, it makes people very cynical about politics. It makes people start saying, well, all politicians are the same. And then what do we have? We have good people out there, which is the point I want to make, who would love to participate in politics but cannot take the hypocrisy of politics. So good people stay out of politics, and there's a phrase, when for evil to trap, it is sufficient that good people stay away. So So Senator Gill is making an important point that we must sit and discuss these issues and come. So, for example, in case of wages with the trade unions, with the business community, with all of that, we are not going to sit and make a pronouncement just because we believe we'll get some votes from it, and then we go there and we disappoint people.
I have one other question I want to ask before we take that break for the next segment. Do you know the Citizen by Investment Program, or the CBI as it's called, program, it generated significant revenues for Grenada. We understand that. How will the DPM ensure that these funds, if a program like that continues, and transparent management, of course, and direct investment into the local communities, rather than just major resort projects and so forth? I want to hear from that. I don't think I've ever heard a conversation of that nature from the DPM.
And that's because, and I say to you, we are the most profound on that subject. And we have observed and we have studied developments in other islands that have the CBI project. Yeah. And we have noticed, for instance, in Dominica and so on, that a significant amount of their monies were used for relocating villages and communities and housing and so on and so forth. Now, we are clear that the revenues earned from CBI is not monies that you put to pay wages at the end of the month.
Okay.
Or to pay recurrent expenditures. It must go into proper projects that persons can identify with, developmental sustainable projects that they can be going to. On the issues of the hotels and so on, now if you understand how CBI works, so that the monies naturally go to development of that and so on. But there must be, in Grenada, you can probably, I'm not sure, Peter might be able to assist. How many projects, national development projects, apart from the hotels and so on, that we can say was funded by CBI?
Very, very, very.
And that is, I can point to St. Kitts and I can point to Dominica and so on, and I can say these projects were funded by CBI. In Grenada, we cannot say the same, and that to me has been very disappointing. I don't think we have used the CBI money well, to be honest, and this government alone is not to be blamed. So it's not that we are casting aspersions on anyone, but we have to look at ourselves as a nation and say, boy, could we have done this better? Is there enough time now for us to change course and to do things better? I would love to see, and whichever government is there, for us to use the CBI revenue into more productive projects and so on that persons can be identified with, having regards to the fact that it is under attack from European and US and so on and so forth.
Yes.
I want to just support what my brother is saying, because I have said, and if you look at the record over the years in Parliament, I've said it in the governments that I've been a member of, that we need to, and the CBI guys will tell you, we needed to use and continue to need to use CBI funds to develop projects that can bring in income to the country as we go forward. So, for example, I have argued that we should have more agricultural projects, we should have more manufacturing projects, we should have more projects developing youth businesses. Why? Because the last thing my brother said was that CBI is not a long-term income earner. It will one day. You see the Europeans have it under pressure, and in fact I'm sure the next budget will indicate a serious decline in CBI revenues. Now, for that decline, we should have had projects in place to supplement that and to develop the income. But unfortunately, the monies were so good. I think after the last election, I think the government said they made the Treasury pregnant with CBI money, and I am not blaming them for as my brother said. I think all governments should have used and should use that money now to develop more projects that are income earning to the country. I'm happy with the tourism projects because that is a particular part of CBI. That was the part of CBI that you have to do tourism projects. So I'm good with that. And hotels were the chosen projects. But we needed to have more agricultural projects. We need, by this time time to have had some small factories, some small businesses that could have been using CBI financing to get off the ground. I absolutely agree with that.
Final question in this segment. I keep saying before I take the break, but sometime I have to go with it. How does the DPM plan to address, that long-standing grievance when it comes to public servants regarding, regularization and pension and working conditions and so forth? How does the DPM plan to deal with that, sir?
Here again is an issue. Well, the issue of the issue of pension, I believe, have been addressed significantly by this government.
Yes.
The issue going forward on the issue of pension is the sustainability. Right, and putting the right structures in place to ensure that the government can sustain paying public servants pension. People do need their pension. People need when they finish work 60, 65 years, and all of these issues with pension and NIS and so on is a whole new program. It's a program by itself, but we need to have a sustainable program to meet the pension demands or obligations by the state. So that needs to be done. And all of this there needs to be consultation with the trade unions, trade union movement, with the businesses and so on, and we come up with a sustainable plan of how we can deliver it. It's so that this government needs to be applauded on the fact that it addressed the issue of pension so that our public servants and so on who have been owed for many years were able to get their pension and so on. And I would say that going forward, we need to ensure that future generations, their interest is protected going forward.
All right. I would add something to that while my friend applauds this government, I also want to applaud the previous government for not appealing the judgment. I think the previous government had the option of appealing the judgment of the court. They did not appeal the judgment. Granted, there were a lot of issues. I'm not disputing there are a lot of issues. I think things could have been done differently. I am on the record saying that in many respects, but give some credit for that, not appealing it, and at least making it now and making the monies available for the payment of the pensions when it actually started payment. It was because of monies. But I also want to say this about public service, GT, that we need to make the public service more purposeful, more fit for purpose. Yeah. I think when the British colonial powers established the public service, it was not meant for development purposes. It was meant to keep us in a particular way. The biggest complaint you get from businesses and the public is the inefficiencies in the public service. And I'm not blaming any particular individuals or sector of the public service. I'm saying the public service was not set up for that. I think we need to have a review. I hear about public service reform for years. I'm not sure what it actually means. But we need to ensure that things happen faster, that when people come into the country wanting to invest, there is a quick process, that when Grenadians want to get things done, it is easier, that people in the countryside do not have to travel to St. George's. And we've been saying that for decades. We need to make the public service more oriented to the development of this country rather than seeming to want to slow things down, which is something that happens. And not the fault of the public servants, the fault of those who need to ensure that it is actually reformed with the purpose of development in mind.
All right. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, the phones are going, which means our listeners may have a question or two they want to chime in on us, and then we get to wrap up at 10 a.m. this morning. We take that break and we'll be right back. Don't touch it out, folks.
Yeah,
How far can a government go when it disagrees with a judge's decision? And where does legitimate criticism end and interference with the judiciary begin? Recent comments by Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has sparked a major regional debate over judicial independence, sentencing, and the separation of powers. Could similar concerns arise here in Grenada? Join Colin Dow this Monday at 8:30 p.m. on Beyond the Headlines with attorneys Lady and Dandy Trotman Joseph and Ruggles Ferguson as we examine government, judges, and the rule of law. It's Beyond the Headlines, Monday, 8:30 p.m. only on GBN.
A new school year means new opportunities, but it also means new expenses. From uniforms and books to laptops, transportation and school supplies, Grenville Cooperative Credit Union Limited is here to help. Apply for a back-to-school loan and give your child the confident start they deserve with affordable financing and friendly service from the credit union you know and trust. Visit your nearest Grenville Cooperative Credit Union branch or call us today for more information. Grenville Cooperative Credit Union Limited, helping members build brighter futures, one school year at a time.
The Caribbean's highly anticipated international drags returns to the Spice Isle of Grenada. The Grenada Motor Club proudly presents the King Ocean International Drags, September 26th and 27th at the Pearls International Speedway. Get ready for what is anticipated to be one of the largest international drag racing events the Caribbean has ever seen. Witness some of the fastest and most powerful drag racing machines in the Caribbean, along with international participation from across the region, North America and South America. 2 days of speed, power, adrenaline, and non-stop action. And it doesn't stop at drag racing. Expect some special drift entertainment, appearances from some of the Caribbean's top influencers, and so much more. Mark the dates, September 26th and 27th. The King Ocean International Drags. The Caribbean is coming to the Spice Isle. You don't want to miss this one.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. I did mention in this segment to give the opportunity to our listeners and viewers. If you do have a question or two, and I beg of you to be very brief in terms of your contribution so that we can accommodate as many callers as possible. We only have a small margin for calls in this segment, so make the best use of it. We do have our first caller. Caller, you're live. Good morning and welcome.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. I would like to find out if the DPM forms the next government, right? How will they relate to Grenada's foreign policy, especially the issue of the sanctions on Cuba? Because Cuba has done a tremendous amount of good for us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, caller.
No, I mean, I think we have had a collective view in this country for years. I think the vast majority of Grenadians are in solidarity with Cuba and are calling for the end of sanctions. I think DPM will continue to do that, to call for the ending of the sanctions. Cuba is a sovereign country that should be allowed to develop the way it wants to develop. And Cuba, as the caller said, I agree with you 100%. Cuba, without Cuba, I remember, as I say, on the issue of doctors, when I was growing up, doctors were a small class of persons in Grenada. Now, working people's children can become doctors without having to pay any school loans, student loans when they leave. So, no, the policy will continue in solidarity with Cuba and calling for the immediate end to sanctions.
We do have another caller. Caller via WhatsApp. You're live. Let's hear from you, and I beg of you to be brief. Go right ahead, please.
Good morning, and certainly I would be brief. Let me just say congratulations to Pedro. I think I still have the rights to call him that way. We go back way back. But Pedro, what I wanted to ask about is agro-industry. Should your government should your party form the next government? What is the plans for agro-industry in Grenada? At one time we in the diaspora, we enjoy mango nectar. We enjoy tamarind juice. What's your government plan, or what's your party's plan for that? Sorry, thank you so much. I know we don't have much time.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate that. As I said earlier, and I continue to tell people, we've done it before. We've established agro-industrial factories before. We had the nectar factory. Everybody's well aware of that. In fact, after the invasion, it was dismantled and sold, I think, to Dominica. Eugenia Charles bought it. We also had a fish processing plant established with the assistance of Cuba. We had boats given to to us by the Cuban government. So it's, as I said earlier, we need to do a determination of what foods we can produce, what foods is going to make economic sense for us, and proceed to do it. I know we can't become self-sufficient in everything, but certainly there are several areas of production where we can become more self-sufficient, not fully self-sufficient, but we can contribute more. The agro-industrial sector is one that we must address, and I think that the nation deserves that, and I thank you for that question. Yes, it's something high on our agenda because we cannot continue to import everything that we eat. I go to the supermarket every weekend, and the fruits, we are getting now the kids buying more fruits like grapes from foreign, they're buying strawberries from foreign. I don't see the golden apples there. I don't see the things that even the tamarind, what they call it now, some tangerine or something like that. I see in the bags $40 for a little bag of it, and we can produce it here. My brother, we need to take stock of what we can do and do it as a nation, but we need to do it as a nation, not as a sector, not as a party, as a nation. Thank you for the question.
We have one more caller via the WhatsApp, and that will be our final caller, and we wrap this segment up. Caller, you're live via WhatsApp, and of course, as usual, be brief, please. Go right ahead.
Yes, please. Good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. DGT and Mr. David and Mr. Gill. Good morning. I must indeed say that I was a little bit stunted when the point was made in regards to the sweet potato. Given what Grenadians eat, it appears to me that the farming has been adopting to what Grenadians eat, which means that if roti is one of our main source of eating, then provide Grenadians with the white potato so that they can make their roti. Now, given the fact, Mr. David, that you were Minister of Agriculture in the last government, I must indeed say that I'm a little bit shocked seeing where that agriculture is coming from and where it's going to. And I think it has done a huge improvement over the last dispensation to what it is at presently. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and have a great and a wonderful day. And
thank you also, caller. Thank you so much. Respond to the caller.
I am not sure, but I think what we need to do is, I think Senator Gill was making a point, reorient our taste. So I'm making a point a minute ago that youth are eating strawberry. Telling us from now, it's strawberry alone they're eating. If we do not tell them about the golden apple nice, the local this nice, the local that nice, the skin up, and the things that we eat. So the point you're making is that on the Irish potato thing, is that Irish potato is imported. We will continue to eat some Irish potato because we have to, the importation, we can't block off the importation of Irish potato, but we must develop more menu. For example, our chefs, our culinary people must develop more menus with sweet potato. You know, I go to restaurants and I eat sweet potato fries. That wasn't something we had before.
Blogger
fries. So what the point we're making is we must eat what we grow and grow what we eat. Of course, we cannot grow everything that we eat, but we must, as much as possible, minimize our importation by telling our young people, eat sweet potato fries when you go in a restaurant. Don't eat the Irish potato fries.
I must admit I was a bit at loss to follow the caller's point, because caller, I don't think you're saying that we should grow based on where our taste is going. I think we need, as Peter rightly pointed out, we need to reorient ourselves to eat our indigenous foods, which are far healthier and which we know how to grow, and there's no harm in growing what we grow, and that's the point we're making. So because we eat Irish potatoes in roti, what are you saying? We will never be able to compete with the large producers of Irish potatoes, never. And our natural and indigenous foods, the sweet potato and so on, is far healthier. So that's the point we're making. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, anything in closing before we wrap this morning?
Well, as we continue to get ready for the elections, I'll make a plug here, if I may. I would like to encourage persons to register with the DPM. The DPM is by far the most competent leader in the person of Peter David, and we believe that we offer the the best option now for the Grenadian people, and we consider ourselves the government in waiting, and I want to urge persons who are listening to us to come out to hear the DPM programs and policies when the in-me-yard is near to you.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit. I want to address a particular group of people in this country who knows that we need something new, but they're afraid to show their face. I want to appeal to all of our people who have ideas. Come forward. Don't be afraid of the tribal thing. Because the only way we will change our society is with the involvement of everybody. And despite all the criticisms, the cursing, I have gone through it for years, and I am not daunted by it, because at the end of the day, I just hope that one day when later in life they will say I did my best to try to make a better society. And I want to welcome persons like my good brother Senator Gill, who is strongly with the DPM, other persons like Olvi and Holas and other young people, Charmaine Gibbs, other young people who are coming forward to participate despite all the criticisms. You know, when somebody comes in, boy, Facebook, there are some people on Facebook, no matter what you say is cussing. Please don't be daunted by that, because at the end of the day, we will be judged by what we do for our country. And we need to, our country hasn't good to us. A lot of the intellectuals who went to university, it is because of the hard work of the farmers, the contributions of countries like Cuba. Please give back to your country, not necessarily by coming up front in politics, but taking part in the discussions about how we develop this country. We need not to go down this selfish road of just looking out for yourself. Let's be our neighbors' keepers, and we in the DPM urge you to come forward to help us in that regard.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you once again for appearing on the program this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you. Hope we can do this again soon. Until then, have a good one. What's left for the rest of the day?
And we thank you for.
All right. Hey, folks, that's how we wrap today's edition of The Point. Thank all the contributors. Have a good one. That's where we say goodbye.